Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I'm vaccinated. I'm here because I find that the freedoms of all of these people in Canada is being squashed.
Protesting vaccine mandates, thousands rally at hospitals across the province.
I honestly was just in shock seeing the posters and the signs that were up there. Many of them saying that COVID is still a hoax.
Already strained doctors and nurses react to the crowds in frustration. And
it's very scary, and hopefully they'll do something about it because I don't want people to stop enjoying the park because of it.
2 kids and a man attacked by coyotes in Stanley Park, and now calls on the province to do more.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Well, from Prince George and the island to right here in Vancouver, thousands took to the streets today at hospitals across the province. They're protesting vaccine mandates and angry about the upcoming passport system. Our Eva Yuguen-Senj was on the ground and tells us the crowds weren't just made up of anti-vaxxers, but even some who are fully immunized.
A crowd so loud you could barely hear the loudspeakers. Close to 5,000 people rallied in front of Vancouver City Hall this afternoon, causing complete gridlock in the area around the Vancouver General Hospital. At one point, the crowd parted so an ambulance could slowly pass through. And while they stood together, they weren't all there for the same reasons. Some don't want vaccines for themselves.
I don't trust what's in them. I don't believe that we know enough. I think that it was prematurely rolled out. And I'm just not comfortable with that.
Others are frustrated by government messaging.
Dr. Bonnie Henry, in a Kamloops article in May, said that the inequities in our society are such that there's no way we would implement a vaccine passport. She said that in May, quote unquote. And now we have the vaccine passport.
But mostly, they don't want vaccines to be mandatory for anyone.
It's not totally against being vaccinated, or I'm vaccinated. I'm here because I find that the freedoms of all of these people in Canada is being squashed.
Across the province, similar rallies took place outside major hospitals in Victoria, Nelson, and Prince George, and also in Kelowna.
When I became a nurse, I made an oath to advocate for my patients, and patients have the right to refuse. It's in BC law. It's what we were taught in school.
Everybody should have the right to choose whatever goes into their bodies. It shouldn't be mandatory. For those people who want to, well and good.
In BC so far, vaccines are only mandatory for those who work in long-term care homes.
I'm not going to get the COVID vaccine. My wife is a nurse and she works in assisted living, and she's not going to get it either. So there's some hard decisions that got to be made on September 13th.
A new vaccine card will be required starting September 13th for non-essential services like gyms and restaurants. And protesters say that's a slippery slope towards eroding their freedom. Eva Yuguen-Senj, CBC News, Vancouver.
The impacts of these protests are reaching far and wide, from doctors to politicians. Reaction and frustration is pouring in. Tanya Fletcher is live with the latest on that angle. Tanya, what are we hearing tonight from those on the front lines?
Anita, in some places, the demonstrations turned physical. Take a look at the protest in Nanaimo. Now, Island Health says some healthcare members were verbally abused as they came to work and went home after their shifts. In at least one case, the health authority says a healthcare team member was physically assaulted. It's still unclear whether that happened at Nanaimo's hospital, but the statement says that is not acceptable and frontline workers deserve respect and support no matter what anyone's personal beliefs are. Meanwhile, medical student Sukhmeet Satchel in Prince George tweeted this video today saying it's disheartening to see this happening right outside the hospital. He says the same physicians saving the lives of COVID patients inside are being disrespected outside.
When I was actually in the room today and just hearing the physicians during the few minutes of break that they have between seeing one patient to the next, just talking about how there's a protest happening right outside the hospital, and just seeing their morale really go down. People that were protesting took the spots in the parking lot of the hospitals. And so the patients that needed to access care were not able to find a parking spot as well.
We also just spoke with a Vancouver-based ER doctor who echoes those frustrations and disappointments about who is being targeted here.
I mean, take your protests to public sites like maybe the Vancouver Art Gallery, but to do it at a site where you know that hospital workers are in there busy saving lives. And I'll tell you that the lives of the people with COVID infection that they're saving right now are those that are unvaccinated. So it's just really, I find it really disrespectful.
And Anita, we just have word right now from Vancouver Coastal Health. There had been some social media videos circulating about ambulances trying to get through the crowds, but Vancouver Coastal Health says they've closely monitored the event to ensure safety of all staff and patients and visitors. It says VCH facility operations and access to patient care were not impacted with today's events.
Okay, Tanya, good to hear. Today's events have strong political undertones as well. So what are we hearing from local and provincial leaders on this?
Yeah, a lot of this is directed at Premier John Horgan, as it's this province that brought in the vaccine passport and vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, for example. He sent out this statement just a little while ago. He says, well, everyone has the right to peaceful protest. The targeting and harassment of healthcare workers at healthcare facilities today is completely unacceptable. We stand by our healthcare workers and support them fully. He says the intent of every COVID-19 guideline and restriction that we put in place since the beginning of the pandemic is to keep people healthy. That remains our #1 priority, and we will take the steps we need to save lives and keep people safe, as the vast majority of British Columbians expect. Now, the mayor of Vancouver also responded, but much more candidly. Kennedy Stewart did not mince his words when we spoke with him last hour.
I just look at all of them, and I don't care what group they come from. They're just a bunch of jerks, and they should just stay home. Really, like I was today at police headquarters. I'm the chair of the police board there, and like the frontline workers are so tired, especially healthcare workers, first responders, and to have hundreds of folks basically rubbing salt in their wounds is completely unacceptable.
Now, he believes these protests are politically charged given the current federal election, and the reaction is coming from all sides. Here's a tweet from Conservative Party candidate Dan Albus. He says the caring people who work in this hospital have been run off their feet. It is well known the COVID ward is beyond capacity. The people who work in healthcare during this pandemic deserve our gratitude and support. This protest should have been held elsewhere. By the way, he's in the central Okanagan. And provincially, here's what health critic BC Liberal MLA Renee Merrifield tweeted. She says our healthcare professionals and first responders do not deserve this protest. If you have a problem with the decision taken by the provincial government, protest in front of my office. Leave our nurses and our doctors alone. So plenty of reaction already, and no doubt plenty more to come as this issue escalates. Anita.
For sure. Tanya Fletcher live tonight. Thanks, Tanya. It's another day of high case numbers in BC. 785 new COVID-19 cases today. Sadly, 2 more people have died of the virus. Another number rising, hospitalizations. Those are up to 199, with 112 in intensive care. Nearly 40% of BC's active cases are in the interior health region. An emotional plea from a Vancouver Island man tonight after his sister, who was not vaccinated, passed away from COVID-19 complications over the weekend.
One of the last things I said to her was, I'm going to cut you a break because you're in ICU right now, but when you get out, you're getting a hard time about not being vaccinated. And she was intubated within 3 or 4 hours after that. So.
44-year-old Kelly Roningen developed a cough and fever 2 weeks ago. A week later, the Duncan mother was at the ICU at Royal Jubilee Hospital in Victoria and died shortly after. Roningen says his sister chose not to be vaccinated because she was scared it would make her sick. 5 people in the Island Health region have died of the virus since last Friday. Final COVID preparations are being made at schools across BC as staff get ready to welcome back students. But the rise in the Delta variant is leading to increasing anxiety, and some staff feel not enough is being done to keep schools safe. Isabel Regam is hearing from a high school teacher who says there's concern over the lack of information being provided.
As you see, for 30 kids, high school kids, this is not a lot of room.
Surrey High School teacher Annie Johanna is prepping her classroom as best she can for the return of her students at LA Matheson Secondary. But she isn't confident the province is doing all that it can to keep schools safe.
With news that notifications are somehow changing, getting less, perhaps not as widespread as they used to be, is of major concern.
She's referring to Dr. Bonnie Henry's update yesterday, revealing that unlike last year, there will be no notifications for single COVID exposures in schools.
We've heard very clearly from people that the majority of people felt that the school-based letters were more anxiety-provoking than helpful.
Instead, school communities will only be hearing about clusters or outbreaks. Johanna doesn't trust that this change will reduce anxiety, but instead feels it will heighten it.
Without knowing, how do we act? How do we actually protect ourselves? How do we know when we need to increase safety measures again?
At Vancouver's Lord Beaconsfield Elementary, final preparations are also underway.
I'm fairly confident. Last year we had a lot of success. There was a few cases in the school, but to my knowledge, there was no one who got sick in school from somebody else in school.
While touring the school with media, the principal explains lessons learned last year are being carried over. Additional measures like outdoor learning spaces and updated filters in ventilation systems are here to stay.
So that frame makes sure that outdoor air doesn't contain COVID and it minimizes recirculation. So throughout the district, we're working to maximize the amount of outdoor air we can provide.
Dr. Bonnie Henry maintains that there is little transmission within schools and that they remain safe settings.
It feels a little bit disingenuous to just say to discount schools as if we're an island.
Isabel Regem, CBC News, Vancouver.
A frat party was shut down on Sunday night at UBC after hundreds of students gathered around several homes on campus, contrary to public health orders. Police say few were wearing masks, and the large crowd meant physical distancing was impossible. The event was also advertised on social media. Take a look at this video of the partygoers that was posted. Officers issued $5,000 in fines for hosting a non-compliant event. Yet more coyote attacks in Stanley Park. This time, 2 kids and a man last night and this morning. Now there are calls for the province to do more to remove the animals. Renee Filipponi shows us the growing efforts tonight to keep people safe.
It's a place people come to unwind and relax. But this summer, a trip to Stanley Park comes with a warning. Violent coyotes have been stalking people, with 45 attacks reported so far this year.
So these coyotes aren't scared of anybody. They're demonstrating a behavior that is extraordinary.
Conservation officers believe animals are being fed by people, which is resulting in this behavior.
We've received some reports of individuals feeding wildlife for photography reasons, but also because they feel that they're doing the right thing.
One of the latest attacks happened here yesterday at 5 p.m. A family of 3 were out for a walk when they were swarmed by 3 coyotes. A 4-year-old child was bitten. Conservation officers later tracked down 1 coyote and it was euthanized. The park is now shut to visitors at night, but people are still coming in.
We're looking at probably adding fencing so that we can make sure that people who have been, going past the barricades without issue will now not be able to get past these controlled access spaces.
The park board has added more rangers and signs, but says any drastic action needs to come from the province. In a statement, the province says, given the extraordinary circumstance, it will be undertaking direct coyote management control. That includes lethal removal, but would not elaborate on how many would be culled. There are growing calls for all the coyotes to be killed now.
Well, we don't need to study the problem. We need to shoot the problem before it kills a child. That's the reality. It's sad, it's unfortunate.
Today, this family using the park says they are aware of the danger.
It's very scary, and hopefully they'll do something about it, because I don't want people to stop enjoying the park because of it.
But for now, officials are urging people to avoid Stanley Park, especially after dark, until they can get the situation under control. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
A threatening letter sent to a mosque in Langley has left its members shocked and disappointed. The letter was sent to the Langley Islamic Center on Tuesday. It's anonymous, but says it is from the KKK. It references the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque attack, where a white supremacist killed 51 people. The letter also ordered the mosque to close within 2 months.
The feeling that came back originally was
disgust and shock that, I don't think people still believe that we live in a world where things like this still exist. And then, obviously there's mixed emotions, right? Some people are upset, some people are furious.
Kelsey says the letter will not discourage members from attending prayer, and security measures have been amped up. Langley RCMP, the BC Hate Crime Unit, and the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team are investigating. Now to the Fairy Creek watershed, where old-growth logging protesters are applying to the BC Supreme Court for another order against RCMP enforcement. Officers have been setting up media exclusion zones and checkpoints. Last month, the court ruled that unlawful, saying that limited press freedoms. Yet protesters claim police are still setting up those exclusion zones in contempt of the courts. A lawyer representing members of the activist group Rainforest Flying Squad says they've now applied for another court order against the RCMP, which will be read on September 13th. The allegations have yet to be proven in court. With the start of the school year just days away, University of Victoria students are turning to social media to complain about a lack of housing. The majority of UVic's 20,000 students come from outside Greater Victoria, and the pandemic and a lack of campus housing have aggravated matters. Students say the university is doing little to help them during a time of unprecedented demand.
We didn't even try looking on campus immediately. We just tried to look for places near campus.
I know that my friends are making jokes about who's going to be homeless this year. As a joke, but it's not really a joke.
We've just seen an influx of people on pages like Reddit and other online forums looking up how do I survive in my car.
More than 1,000 people have signed a petition online calling the university to help students with their housing needs. Cooler temperatures and higher humidity have helped firefighting efforts in this province. The number of active wildfires in BC continues to fall, now just 216, with just 3 new fires in the past 2 days. An evacuation order due to the White Rock Lake fire has been downgraded to an alert for the Valley of the Sun subdivision, and some evacuation alerts related to the White Rock Lake, McKay Creek, and Lytton Creek wildfires have been lifted. And while this fire season might be on the wane, homeowners are being urged to prepare for future wildfire seasons. Anita Bathe has more on what you can do to make sure your house is protected.
It's a reality more British Columbians get ready for.
These are a consequence of climate change, and the trajectory that we're on is for even warmer and drier conditions into the future.
In North Vancouver, this wildfire expert has been working on making her home flame resistant.
That means that there's no burnable debris immediately around your home, in your gutters, on your roof, or caught around the edges of your home or under a deck. That's all kindling for your house to catch on fire.
One of Daniel's biggest investments is her metal roof. Despite the $28,000 price tag, she feels a lot safer knowing it's there. She also got concrete siding and double-paned UV thermal glass windows, which are more resistant to heat. And take a look at her yard. Rock gardens forming a barrier between her fence and around her home. Any cedar trees have also been cut so they don't hang over the roof. FireSmart BC recommends having a 1.5 meter non-combustible zone around your entire house. This means a surface of soil, rock, or stone with no plants, debris, or other flammable materials. Daniel says low fire activity on the coast doesn't mean people shouldn't take preventative measures.
We are not safe because we live on the coast and in coastal temperate rainforests. We are also vulnerable.
I sleep a bit easier because of it.
Further inland, near Salmon Arm, Clive Calloway is preparing to put up a rooftop sprinkler, hoping the effort will help extinguish any flaming embers threatening his home in the future.
When this latest fire hit just south of us, we started thinking, well, what should we do for a bit of personal responsibility and peace of mind, especially at nighttime?
In the interior, Margaret Wollosley was forced from her home because of the White Rock Lake fire. She was anxious, but found some relief knowing her metal roof could protect her home.
We're going to keep having these terrible wildfire summers, so it's a matter of everybody taking the steps to get better prepared.
And there are lots of options and information available to make your home a safer place to live. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is here now with the forecasts. Joe, some good advice there. You know, we think we're safe here on the coast, but that might not be the case with the hot temperatures we saw this summer, and I think you have more proof of that, don't you?
Yeah, this was an exceptional summer, Anita. Obviously, June and July smashing historic records. But as we turn the page on the calendar, I took a look at August, and it was also a hot one. Take a look at the numbers. I've got the averages. This is based on our 20-year average, but of course, we're waiting for that last decade from Environment Canada. But normal average highs up until the early 2000s anyway, 22.2 degrees. We were a full degree warmer just for August. And the overnight lows also telling a story. We were almost 2 degrees warmer than our average overnight low. And that is something that we are seeing with climate change. Our overnights are warming faster than our afternoons. As far as rainfall, we were about average across the south coast. That was because of a couple of pronounced rain events. Today's high temperatures across the south coast, you can see we are not quite at our seasonal for Metro Vancouver of 21 degrees. A little cooler on the island today, but sunshine for everyone. And yes, those cooler temperatures, as Anita mentioned, really helping the situation in the interior. Low 20s, I should say, and high teens for the Kootenays. High pressure is our story for one more day, but we will see a bump in temperature. So Thursday, feeling decidedly summer, Anita, for most of BC before I get to a long weekend rainmaker. I'll time that out for everyone coming up.
Well, I see you've changed from your fall attire to your summer shirt, so we're getting ready for it.
Keep them all at hand. Yes.
Thanks, Johanna.
You're welcome.
And starting today, kids 12 and under can now ride public transit for free across BC.
And children riding for free today, as of today, will be regular transit users tomorrow. And that's good for everybody, especially in this era where we seek to tackle together the challenges of climate change.
With this program, kids under 12 can ride a bus on their own, but if they go on fare-gated transit like SkyTrains, SeaBuses, or the West Coast Express, they have to be accompanied by a paying adult. If they're taking those alone, they have to pay for their own ticket. The province says this effort will encourage transit ridership and will help with affordability as well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions from motor vehicles. Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. I'm your host, Anita Bathe. If you're not already doing it, you can always watch our show on our free app, CBC Gem. You can also catch us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. In Quebec, it was day one for the vaccine passport. How did the rollout go? And what's planned in Ontario's system? That's announced today, and it's coming up next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Well, public transportation in Toronto marked its 100th anniversary today. That's a full century of moving people around the city. Greg Ross spoke with a longtime driver and a Toronto Transit Commission superfan about what today means to them.
So 100 years ago, the TTC was born.
Surrounded by some of the classic vehicles the TTC has used throughout the past century, Toronto Mayor John Tory reminisced about his earliest memories of taking the streetcar to school.
I want to make it clear it was the second one and not the first one that I took to school.
Toronto's first streetcars hit the road in 1921. Back then, a ticket was 7 cents or 4 for a quarter. They've gone through many changes over the years, as have Toronto subways and buses. Barry Allen has worked through many of those changes.
I like going to work and I enjoy what I do.
Allen has been a TTC bus driver for 49 years and is still going strong. Today, he took a stroll down memory lane with us.
Takes me back to when I was a rookie.
For the first time in years, sitting in the driver's seat of one of the first models he drove back in the early 1970s.
Oh, I'd love to just take it for a whirl. I really would. It brings back a lot of memories.
While most of the memories are good ones, Allen says these old buses definitely didn't have all the bells and whistles that the buses he drives now have, like air conditioning.
It was pretty tough on a very hot, humid day, lose 8 to 10 pounds.
Those are the kinds of stories 14-year-old Jamie Cowrie loves to hear about.
I've always liked transit.
He's what you call a TTC superfan. He knows just about all there is to know about Canada's largest public transportation system. And he has his own special way of marking the 100th anniversary.
I'm riding all the subway lines in order of the way they were built. I started at Eglinton and went to Union because that was the first stretch of the subway.
It'll take 2 days for Cowrie to make it through the entire system, but he says that's no big deal, considering it's his dream to ride routes like this every day.
I do hope to one day retire driving a bus or a subway.
To commemorate the milestone, the City of Toronto sign at City Hall and the CN Tower will be illuminated in TTC red all night long. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Today, Quebec became the first province to kickstart its vaccine passport system. Many non-essential businesses in that province will not allow in people who cannot show proof of full vaccination. As Alison Northcott tells us, it may take some businesses a while to get used to.
This is part of a new reality for Quebecers, showing proof of vaccination to sit in a cafe.
If they sit here, the minute they want to sit here and they want to lean here and go like this, that means it's inside, then I got to scan it.
The vaccine passport now applies to a wide range of non-essential services, restaurants, bars, gyms, movie theaters, and festivals for anyone over 12. Reaction is mixed.
I'm all for it. I mean, we're all in the same boat.
He says he's against the passport because it infringes on his freedom.
And that's the app, and that's done.
Staff at this library have been helping seniors with the technology. But if you don't have a smartphone, you can print a paper copy. Visitors to Quebec don't need the QR code, but do need proof they're vaccinated and photo ID. This is one of many restaurants getting used to the passport.
It's good. Actually, it's handy, especially if it's in my phone already.
But the owners worry about losing clients and facing backlash.
We want everyone to understand that this is not our choice. This is being mandated by the government. We can be shut down if we allow unvaccinated people in here.
There's benches across the street.
Wilson Liu decided to close his restaurant's dining area, doing takeout only to bypass the passport.
We believe in its equality, you know what I mean? It's your body, your choice. I'm fully vaccinated myself, but you know what I mean? Like, everybody has their choice.
There have been protests against the passport, and the Premier says he knows some won't like it.
I think that the vast majority of the population, they support the passport. They want to return back to a normal life.
For the first couple of weeks, the province says there will be a grace period to allow businesses and clients a chance to adjust to the passport. But after that, those who don't comply could be fined. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford says it was something he didn't want to do, but today he too announced vaccine passports will be needed in Ontario. Lorenda Redekop tells us about the plan coming into effect September 22nd.
There's no secret that, I wasn't in favor of this.
The Premier had said vaccine passports would create a split society.
We either do this or we risk shutting down the economy, which would even be worse.
Proof of vaccination will be required indoors at restaurants, gyms, and recreational facilities, sporting events, concerts, theaters, and cinemas, banquet halls and event spaces, as well as casinos and bingo halls. At nightclubs considered high risk, you'll have to show proof even if it's an outdoor space. Initially, for the first month, you'll use the current proof of vaccine already available. On October 22nd, a QR code and app will launch, or you can print out a paper copy of your QR code. More secure, easier, though something the Premier had said wasn't needed. Asked what changed, he blamed the federal government.
Every Premier wanted a vaccine passport. And unfortunately, the federal government decided to go to an unnecessary election, which I'm still shaking my head over, in the middle of a fourth wave.
A Exempt from proof of vaccination are hair salons and barber shops, retail, places of worship, and youth recreational sports. This also isn't required for employees in locations where customers have to show proof.
Any business can introduce an immunization policy for their business and for their employees. The other piece of protection that you have within a restaurant, for example, is that every worker should be screening for symptoms before they show up.
I'm quite confident, actually, that some of these things will be reconsidered over time as we see more and more transmission in these settings. It would just be nice to identify those right away.
The opposition says given some other provinces already have this in place, it should have happened sooner.
The Premier has obviously been dragged kicking and screaming to this point, notwithstanding what all of the experts were saying. So here we are, as I said, last minute Larry, and that's going to have an impact on our businesses. It's going to have an impact on our communities.
People with medical exemptions will be able to enter these non-essential businesses. So will children under 12, not yet eligible for a vaccine. The government says this is a temporary measure. How long it lasts will all depend on the fourth wave. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Now we go to Saskatchewan, where a murder-suicide happened on Monday. A woman was shot and killed by her estranged husband before he turned the gun on himself. The victim's older sister tried to save her life, but then had to run to save her own. Tonight, Bonnie Allen brings you the story of her harrowing escape and a warning: many of the details are disturbing.
Charlene Graham's sister knew she was in danger. The 34-year-old teacher had just left her abusive husband, Delane Graham, and he was threatening her.
She wanted out.
Della Duquette says the family couldn't locate Charlene Monday afternoon. A day earlier, Charlene had told her this.
If I don't ever answer my phone, it's not because I don't want to. Please come find me, because he has me.
The couple had split a month ago. Charlene's mother called RCMP for help just after 2 p.m. Monday, begging police to go to the campground where Charlene's estranged husband, Delane, was living in a trailer.
They just told my mom, oh, well, we have to go check the house and the school. And then when she hung up with them, I said, Mom, you go be with the kids, and I'm going to go find Char.
Duquette went to the campground herself, saw Delane stabbing Charlene, and tackled him.
And when I had him on the ground, I thought, okay, he's not gonna do nothing else to her. Then he stabbed me in my hand, and it made me let go a little bit, and he got away. And then I went back to her, and I said, Sister, are you okay, sister?
She'll never forget Charlene's dying words.
Go, sis. It's okay, I'm gonna die. And then he came with the gun. She knew he had it. And he shot her right in front of me. And he took her life right in front of me.
At that moment, Duquette knew she could die too.
Something snapped in my head, and I knew she wasn't here anymore, because I didn't hear her cry anymore. And I knew she wasn't here. And I heard her words telling me to go, so I ran, hoping he wouldn't shoot me in the back.
As she ran, she heard another gunshot. Delane Graham died by suicide inside the trailer. Duquette is frustrated that others didn't step in to help or call police earlier.
I was yelling for help, and there were so many campers around, and I'm like, why isn't anyone coming to help?
Duquette is devastated she wasn't able to save her sister. She wants others to understand how quickly domestic violence can turn deadly. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake.
It took 18 days for the Liberal Party to put out its election platform. So what's in it? Any surprises? Well, we'll tell you coming up.
This is a story about giving it all away, not just $10 or $20 here and there, but everything. And in Jack Bell's case, everything was close to $10 million. And in his case, charity began close to his home in British Columbia.
The CBC's Eve Savory takes us to the streets of Vancouver and talks to Jack Bell.
How are you doing?
I wouldn't mind a cigarette.
Wouldn't you?
There's an old saying, them that has gets. Jack Bell, former millionaire, philanthropist, says them that has should give.
In the last 3 years I gave everything away, so I had no income. And the great pleasure of not having any income is that you don't have any income tax to pay.
Jack Bell made his fortune in land. He bought peatland just outside Vancouver in the 40s and grew cranberries on it.
How much peatland did you own and how much of it was cranberry?
At one time, I owned 2% of Richmond.
2% of Richmond.
Then in 1985, the land he'd bought for $25 an acre sold for $25,000 an acre. Suddenly, Jack Bell was a rich man.
When you were at the height of your fortune before you started giving it away, what was your net worth?
About 10 million.
Oh.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get rid of it?
Oh, a couple of years.
Jack Bell is 78, but even as a young man, he always knew he'd give his money away if he ever got it.
First of all, you can't take it with you. So what can you do with your money? Leave it for your children, which is a good reason to leave, pass it on to them. But if they already have enough, you're only going to spoil them if you give them too much. So with their consent and cooperation, decide to give it away while I'm still alive instead of waiting till they put it on my tombstone.
Carol Taylor was a Vancouver City Councillor at the time, struggling to meet the city's social needs.
I was sitting in my office at City Hall one day, and in came this good-looking man, and he said to me, "I've made millions in my life, and would you help me spend it on good causes?" I went, "Excuse me, am I awake? Am I dreaming?"
She sent him here, the downtown east side, Vancouver's Skid Row. A crisis was brewing. Women whose lives here are even more brutal than men's had found an oasis, a women's center in a tiny storefront office. But new space was desperately needed and there was no money. Back then, Laurel Kimbley was the coordinator.
Jack Bell walked through the door, and he came in and asked me what I needed. And I was very truthful with him. I said, "Look, we need everything." And he kept saying, "You've got it." And I kept thinking he's saying, "I've got it," meaning I understand. And my Lori, who was the co-worker, the facilitator, in the drop-in came in and she said, "Laurel, shut up. You've got it." And I walked into the back of the drop-in and burst into tears.
Let's return now to our top story tonight.
I don't believe that we know enough. I think that it was prematurely rolled out.
Thousands of people opposed to vaccine mandates clogged the streets of Vancouver and went outside hospitals across the province this afternoon. They carried signs arguing that vaccine passports amount to discrimination, chanting things like freedom and crimes against humanity. Our reporters on the ground tell us the crowds were mixed, with those who were anti-vaccine, but they also included people who got both shots yet believe everyone should have a choice. Joining us live now is med student Sukhmeet Sachal. He tweeted out video earlier today of a protest outside of Vancouver, calling it disrespectful to patients and doctors. We're not identifying where you are, Sukhmeet, for your safety, but thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you paint a picture for us? What was it like where you were today?
I was leaving the hospital and I saw lines and lines of people just standing there and protesting against COVID, against the vaccines, against the vaccine passports that are supposed to come out. And it was really disheartening, to say the least, because it was right outside the hospital where patients are being treated and physicians are trying to save the lives of even COVID patients.
Can you, I also want to talk about, we've confirmed that a healthcare worker was assaulted on Vancouver Island today. How does that make you feel as someone who has also said that you're afraid?
Yeah, that I never heard of that. So that's really coming to me as a shock right now. Just seeing that how healthcare workers are being treated right now, it's not okay at all. Healthcare workers have been working day and night to make sure that people are getting the care that they need during this difficult time for all of us. They are really burning out right now. And so it's really hard for me to hear that from you.
Now, I personally know of a handful of nurses who are either anti-vax or anti-mandates, often angry, saying we, the media, are not representing them. So tell me, as someone working in a hospital, what are you seeing? Do you know healthcare workers who feel this way?
So as a medical student, I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues who have been saying the same things as me, especially after seeing what we did today. It's really disheartening, and we are seeing the effects that this is having, whether that's on a hospital, whether that's on patients, whether that's for physicians. For instance, the parking lot of the hospital I was at was getting full with these protesters who were bringing their cars. And so imagine now someone who might have to come in for a delivery and have to deliver their baby. Where are they going to park their car? Where are the people who need to come for the emergency? Where are they going to park their car? And so these are some things that I think people often forget. And especially the noise with the honking and so forth. I've seen on Twitter, I've seen my friends who are located all across the province talk about how their patients have been disrupted, about how physicians are really breaking down, about how nurses have been crying on the call, and just hearing all these things outside while they are trying to protect people's lives inside.
Yeah, we were reading a lot of those stories today on social media, absolutely heartbreaking. So tell me, what can people do to help those on the front lines right now?
I think right now, what we can really do is really support the people that are trying to treat these individuals in hospitals. I am so for protests. If people need to protest, by all means, go ahead. But I think there's a time and place to do this. If you want to protest and you know that the election is coming forward, please go to your MPs and protest and ask them for their what they're going to do for the campaign. What are they going to do for COVID? I think that's the best avenue right now, not outside a hospital where mostly everyone inside the hospital is already vaccinated. And so I think their messaging is going to be counterintuitive. And so I think another thing that public health agents and physicians and the government can really do is really understand and see where these individuals are coming from. A lot of the times we have a top-down approach, whether that's in medicine or whether that's in public health. And I really think it's important to listen to the voices of these protesters and see where they're coming from. What are the fears that they have regarding these issues? What are the real concerns? And I think once we address these, we can really move forward and try to help end this pandemic.
Sukhmeet Setchal is a UBC medical student and founder of the Sikh Health Foundation. Thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, halfway through the federal election campaign, the Liberal Party has unveiled its platform, including ambitious spending promises worth some $78 billion. David Cochran now with what's in it and what Justin Trudeau's opponents are saying about it.
You have a choice about what the next 18 months and the next 18 years look like.
That's how Justin Trudeau wants Canadians to see this election, and so a platform designed to draw contrasts with his main rival.
What Erin O'Toole is doing is not leadership. Courting special interests, from anti-vaxxers to climate deniers, from the gun lobby to anti-choice organizations, failing to mention racism even once in his platform, and ripping up $10 a day childcare agreements across the country.
The spine of that argument already announced Liberal policies on vaccine mandates, climate change, $10 childcare, and new policies on guns and abortion.
Canada is a country where we stand up for women's rights, and I will not allow others to limit those rights.
Trudeau is promising to revoke charitable status for anti-abortion organizations and new regulations to make abortions more available. On guns, making it mandatory that all assault rifles be destroyed or disabled, with $1 billion for provinces to ban handguns. Wedge issues that target conservatives.
Mr. Trudeau called the election and just recycled some promises he already failed to deliver on from the previous election.
But the Liberals aren't just targeting their right flank. There's a tough opponent on the left.
What we have in this election is a choice with Justin Trudeau, who continues to prioritize the super rich, and that hurts you. That hurts people. or you can choose New Democrats who are going to fight for you.
The Liberal rebuttal, a tax hike on big banks and insurance companies, and a minimum income tax for high-income earners. There's also billions to make it easier to buy a home, get a doctor, and fight climate change.
It is responsible, it is prudent, and it is fully transparent.
Trudeau's responsible and prudent adds up to about $78 billion in new spending over the next 5 years. There's no plan to balance the budget, but the Liberals say the deficits will get smaller as economic growth boosts revenue. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's called a supercell thunderstorm, and it slammed into southern Saskatchewan, leaving it in its wake. Widespread damage, why the storm just kept coming and coming next. And at 6:44, you are looking at a live shot of North Vancouver. The long weekend is on its way, but you'll want to keep that raincoat handy. Will it be a complete washout? Johanna has the answer next.
Pretty good. Summer's done, so I guess I want to see my friends again, because yes, I have seen a lot of my friends, but some of them live on the other side of the city, or some of them have been camping somewhere else.
I mean, I'm feeling kind of scared because my sister, she was saying like, oh, you're gonna need this, and then you're gonna need like 5 other binders. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, what? Yeah.
How I would make friends is I would start by asking questions. I would start by asking, like, what's your favorite color? Or what do you like to do? Do you play sports or dance? Or like, what do you like to play? Or what do you like to learn about? And stuff like that. And as you ask more questions, you guys get more comfortable, and then sometimes you'd become best friends.
Everybody's new. Maybe there's one person that you're friends with that's coming too, but a lot of the time you don't know a lot of people, so you could just maybe when at recess or something, just walk over to them, invite them to a game, or if they invite you to a game, you can join them. Maybe frisbee or soccer.
So I feel like probably just be yourself, like be nice around people. And I mean, you can make the first move and just go up to someone that you think is cool, like you want their friend, and just say, hey, you want to play sometime? And yeah, just be yourself.
Try doing the things that you already know, because if adding the stress of maybe if you're doing something new and also in the stress of coming back, try doing the things that you already know. Maybe if you have friends there, try hanging out with them, and then after a bit, after you're not nervous anymore, maybe go branching out with others. So you do the things in your comfort zone, and then after you're relaxed, you can do the things out of your comfort zone.
After we were going back from online learning to in person, I was a little nervous because I didn't know how I was gonna do stuff, or if we're just gonna move on to really hard stuff. But honestly, I kind of asked my teacher what kind of stuff we're gonna be doing. If you want, just kind of stay in your own little bubble sometimes.
It's gonna be okay. At first it's a little scary, but then once you settle in and it's a couple of days that you've been in school, it's actually pretty fun, and you make some friends. And yeah, I would just recommend be yourself, do your best.
A trail of heavy damage in southern Saskatchewan after a supercell storm brought thunderstorms, rain, and hail. Alexander Kwan has more on the tornado warnings issued and what happened.
People in southern Saskatchewan spent today cleaning up after a wild storm swept through the region last night. The storm blew in with a dramatic entrance, reminding people why this province is called the land of living skies. The combination of rain, hail, lightning, and strong wind had a devastating result.
It kept rolling along. It's what we call a supercell, which is the kind of storm that can keep going for hours and hours because all the ingredients are there to keep it going. So thankfully, no funnels, no tornado touchdowns, but quite a bit of rain and quite a bit of hail.
Northwest Regina appears to be the hardest hit. At least 4 trees were down by lightning strikes. Others were brought down by wind gusts clocking in at 100 kilometers an hour. City crews were on scene to quickly take care of the felled trees this morning, but there's no doubt that vehicles and homes have some scars from the storm.
Yeah, there's been about 95 calls for a wide range of situations, including debris and branches and some localized flooding. The information continues to come in, and residents typically would contact their insurance company for severe property damage. Don't have any details right now, but the storm was significant in regards to wind and hail, so I do expect that there is property damage, particularly in the northwest part of Regina.
Many residents tell CBC they were surprised by how damaging the storm was. Others disappointed by a forced and unexpected end to their growing season. This Regina neighborhood is covered with shredded flowers, leaves, and bushes, torn apart by the hail. A dramatic signal that Saskatchewan's warm summer months are coming to an end. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe now. Joe, okay, let's get right to the long weekend because it's almost here. I'm thinking rubber boots, umbrellas, rain jackets, all of it.
Pull out all the Gore-Tex for this weekend. Yeah, we've got a pretty decent rainmaker in store for the last unofficial summer weekend. I'm sure we'll have a few more summer days after this, but we do have a good soaker in the cards. Let me start off with the big picture across the country. We saw the severe storms in the prairies thanks to a big bump in temperatures. We'll watch for those tomorrow in through southern Manitoba. We've got rain from the remnants of Ida impacting Atlantic Canada tomorrow. And then we've got the West Coast low that is moving in for the weekend. Right now, though, look at our temperatures, still a touch below seasonal, 18 for YVR as we head into the evening hours, hanging on to low 20s across the east coast of the island, 23 out towards Hope, just a 15 down towards Victoria Harbour. Couple of degrees warmer for everyone tomorrow as we stay under the influence of this high pressure ridge for one more day. But you can see as I pause you tomorrow afternoon, the cloud already encroaching across the island and through parts of the northwest, where we will get the rain nice and early tomorrow. Haida Gwaii, Prince Rupert, Terrace, you'll get that rain nice and early. That is what will be our story this weekend. But we've got a couple of days before that cold front gets to us for Saturday. It will also bring showers to the interior, but not until the second half of the weekend, and it's not a guarantee yet, although temperatures will remain below 30, but not as soggy a weekend for places like Kelowna and Cranbrook, where you're still below seasonal tomorrow, but feeling decidedly more summer-like. Quick look at those long-range temperatures, though, because of course we want to keep temperatures down below 30 degrees as we still have those big wildfires in place. 30 degrees is such a marker for explosive fire weather conditions. And you can see even as we head into Saturday and Sunday, we get close, but staying below that all important 30-degree mark. So I get to enjoy a bit of clearer skies as well, although high pressure is bringing smoky skies to the Okanagan today and tomorrow. Some more active weather will clear things out for the weekend. Okay, Vancouver's forecast, we've got that 21 tomorrow. Inland, we could feel humidex of mid-20s. Increasing cloud for Friday, and there it is. Rain all day Saturday, showers lingering through most of Sunday. Monday is a mainly cloudy day. I'll keep my eye on the long weekend. We'll see if we can find one outdoor window somewhere in there, Anita.
Please do, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another great day of competition for Canada at the Paralympics in Tokyo. Canadian athletes picked up more medals, and as Devin Haru tells us, Canadians also set some Paralympic records.
Not one, not two, but 3 medals on day 8 for Canada here at the Tokyo Paralympics. Let's start right here inside National Stadium, where a short time ago, 41-year-old Brent Lakatos won a silver medal in the 100-meter race. He so badly wanted to defend his title from 5 years ago in Rio, but it wasn't to be on this night. He said after the race, All I want is gold. He still has more events here at the Games. And earlier today, 35-year-old Greg Stewart from Kamloops, British Columbia, winning gold in the men's shot put event. He blasted into the stadium, soaking up the moment, and on his first throw under the bright lights, he set a Paralympic record. It was the best throw of the day. He was overwhelmed with emotion. What a journey for him, 20 years in the making, and he stood on top of the podium here in Tokyo. And finally, over at the Tokyo Aquatic Center, Orly Rivard winning gold in the 400-meter race. It's her 9th medal, and she did it in a world record time. In fact, she smashed her own world record by 5 seconds. Incredible. Normally, these world records are broken by the smallest of margins. Here today, 5 seconds. Rivard, a gold medal winner again. 4 days left of competition here at the Games. Devin Haru for CBC Sports in Tokyo.
A surprise visitor for someone forced from his home because of wildfires in the Okanagan. A large furry animal taking advantage of his absence. More on the swimming bear next.
Same as other people skateboarding. It's fun, exhilarating, all that shenanigans. But just like related to vision loss, it's scary. Probably more scary than most people.
I have a hereditary condition called retinitis pigmentosa. So I've been slowly but surely losing vision just throughout my whole life. I think my mom bought me like a banana board from a garage sale, and first ride down the driveway was it. Skate Bats is all about giving visually impaired and low vision kids just a chance at maybe seeing if skateboarding is for them.
It feels thrilling almost, because like I'm moving without moving my legs, but I still have control over where I go.
They're willing to put in the work to become skateboarders, which is what gets in the way of most people. Low vision or not, skateboarding is really difficult, but these kids they have the courage and the work ethic to do it.
I can see the bowl pretty good. Like I can see that and all the blue stuff, but especially up on that bump, it's just flat.
For the most part, we can't see when the ramps begin and when they end, so any change of angle of the riding surface is totally invisible to us. It's just a sea of gray. So just a few little lines help us just identify, like high contrast lines, help us identify when the ramps start, when they end, when to get ready, when to adjust our weight, all that stuff. So they're just small accommodations, but they work really well, and they're just a glimpse of what an adaptive park can look like in the future.
So basically what it is like, let's say I'm going down a ramp, and then like if I'm coming up to the ramp and I need to go down the ramp, then at the top of the ramp and at the bottom of the ramp, there'll be tape. So then I'll be like, oh, top tape, I'm like, okay, I'm preparing to go down the ramp. Bottom tape, okay, cool, I'm not going down the ramp anymore. Okay. So it's like transitions of heights and stuff.
It's amazing to me to watch them. Not only Grace, but the other kids who can't see as well, and their confidence just grows every week that they come, and they're better and better at skateboarding, and they're closer and closer as a community too, in their little group.
It's kind of selfish, like giving these kids a chance to skateboard. It's selfish for me. It gives me hope about me losing my own vision, but having a future in skateboarding, or having a future with a dynamic, fun activity that I can do that gives me an identity, that gives me entrance into a subculture and a community and a city. The more I skateboard as a visually impaired person, the more I feel like I have a future.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
September is Literacy Month. Have fun and support the cause by joining CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett at the virtual Team Trivia Challenge. Register and learn more at dakota.ca. And join CBC Vancouver's Angela Starrett at the Ravens Feast Gala and Art Auction, a virtual art and culture experience in support of the Bill Reid Gallery. Get tickets and learn more at billreidgallery.ca.
This next story is a little bit like Goldilocks, but in reverse. An Okanagan man was shocked to see an intruder while watching his home security camera footage. Yes, it's a black bear taking a dip in his swimming pool in the West Shore Estates area. Homeowner Joshua Tenzola, who was forced to leave his home because of the White Rock Lake wildfire, has been watching the videos remotely. He says at least 2 black bears have been making themselves at home over the past few days, swimming and rummaging through garbage. When they can return home, the Tenzola family plans to work with conservation officers to make sure the bears are safely relocated. The bears need that relief from the heat too, I guess. All right, thanks for watching CBC Vancouver News tonight. Tanya Fletcher is filling in for Dan at 11 o'clock after the National. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same time. Good night.